All right, everybody. Welcome into this latest edition of the Belly Up Fantasy Live Sports Baseball Show. And of course, I'm Kevin, and I've got Vince with me today. And how's things going, Vince?
Man, going great. We've got gorgeous weather here in central Kentucky. I'm home alone. My wife and kids are out of town, so I'm tending to the chickens and the dogs and
All right.
running around. But I'm ready to talk baseball tonight.
Okay, so I got the cat here, and I'm holding down the fort, except for her. So hopefully she'll be supporting me throughout this. But yeah, Vince, we do have a lot of things to talk about right now, and the story that's at the top of the list that's been there for the last 2 weeks now is the banned substance on the baseballs, which went into effect, as you know, on Monday, and all it took was one day for it to really, you know, go off the rails a little bit. I don't know if you saw what happened with Philadelphia and,
Yes.
and the Nationals yesterday, and what do you think about this whole thing? Because they actually stopped the game 3 times and checked Max Scherzer in the middle of the game. What do you think about that, man?
Well, there has to be common sense,
There does.
and that's what's lacking at this point in Major League Baseball, and the officials have lacked it for a long time. But the idea that we're going to check, and I'm guessing a lot of that has to do with Girardi and him
Yeah,
saying you need to. He's got. I'm seeing something. They're telling me something. Whatever. At some point, somebody has to say, "Shut up, sit down. We're playing baseball." And if you can check them in between innings, and it's not going to affect the game flow, okay, it's still annoying, but okay. But it was ridiculous, and that's exactly what I thought was going to happen. Coaches, managers, they were going to take advantage of this as a way to try to get the pitcher out of a routine, get in his head, those kinds of things. And the umpires have to understand the gameplay in that and say, listen, we don't have time for this. If it's legit, fine, we'll check it. But 3 times in 3 innings, that's a little too much.
yeah, I have to agree. And I thought this whole thing was that they would be doing that like in between innings, or whatever. And that is not what happened yesterday. And and the biggest part of this that I don't understand is it's like you are going to the pitcher and you're placing him, kind of like the policeman's out there, and and we're placing you under arrest, but you don't have any evidence
Right.
to do that. And the thing I don't understand about it is the evidence is on the baseball. So why
Mm-hmm.
are you not checking the ball?
Hmm.
And they take out 100 balls out of play because it's in the dirt or whatever it is. So the ball goes in the dirt instead of just throwing it out. The umpire looks at it, all good, and then you throw it away. And
I don't
then
know how much pine tar gets on the ball from the bat would be the only thing that would throw that off a little bit.
I don't know either. After all this that we're supposed to be the high technological society nowadays. You think that they'd be able to know that information?
Yeah.
And um, the ball comes into the catcher, and nobody hits it. So there's no pine tar on it. So what
Mm-hmm.
you do is you tell the catcher, if you're the umpire, say, if this ball is not put in play, I want it. So the ball comes in, the batter doesn't swing, whatever, and he hands it back he looks at it. Okay, it's all good. Throw it. But if there's something on there, if there's something suspicious at all, then you say, oh, time out. Come on. Because you had guys that are practically taking their pants off yesterday on the field, and I thought I forget what that guy's name was for the White Sox years ago. I don't know if you remember it. He was called Psycho on the field because he slid into first, whatever it was, and he took his pants off right there on the field. Is that what we want in baseball?
Well, okay. So I'm on your side here. I agree with you as a whole. But we also have to understand the pitchers are being a little dramatic about it also.
Of course.
And now Scherzer had every right to be frustrated, 100% on his side through that. But if they're going to check you and you know they're going to check you when you come off the field, don't throw a hissy fit about it. Don't be dramatic about it. Just walk over, hand them your glove and hat, let them check where they need to check, and walk off. It doesn't even. It doesn't take long. They don't sit there and spend hours on it. They feel real quick. They give it back. Everybody's good. So there's been a little bit of drama on both sides of it, unnecessary drama on both sides. But hey, why not have a little fun with it? You're going to get on TV and make it on Sports Center maybe, or become a viral thing by unbuttoning your pants and pulling them down like the Oakland A's pitcher did. But this is going to be a thing where maybe in a week we're not talking about it anymore. They're still going to be checking, but nobody's going to care. It's going to be part of the routine. It's going to be annoying. They're going to be time, but when the managers get involved, that's when it's going to be a problem. And especially when they get involved, not to actually catch cheaters, but to play a game to get in their head.
And that's what the batters used to do by stepping out of the box. You throw the guy out of his rhythm. The managers shouldn't have that, ability to do that.
Right. Well, so it's hard because nowadays the metrics, the analytics, they are watching the spin rate on the balls. And if all of a sudden this guy whose spin rate is now doubled, it makes sense. Okay, hey, ump, here's what we have. But, it's so hard to just enforce these rules without having the sleazeballs get involved with it and watching these managers that are they're just twisting the rules to make it kind of fit their thing. And good for them. The old saying, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Well, in this case, if you're not trying to make people think that they're cheating, then you're not trying. You got to play the game, but man, it's not good for the game. It's not good for Major League Baseball.
It's not a good look. And one of the things I said last week was, you're making the pitchers the enemy, the bad guy, And so I don't know if you saw that the very next day, Rich Hill came out and just slammed the Baseball Players Association. And so now you've got the players, the pitchers against the hitters, and you're sitting there trying to come up with labor, stability, and unity throughout the land. This is not the way to go about doing it when you're fracturing their very union.
Right.
Maybe that's the owners. Maybe that's one of their things they're trying to do, but I don't see that helps your labor scenario. And I don't know if you saw that Tyler Glasnow came out and he admitted that he throws a pitch with rosin and sunscreen on it. And he said that he stopped doing that and he hurt himself. Do you give any credibility to that at all?
No, I don't know. I mean, it's possible. I'm not saying he's just telling fibs, I guess, but in the motion of pitching, you're going to get hurt at some point in time, and I'm not sure how much.
Completely unnatural motion, so that's why pitchers get hurt.
Yeah, I don't think you can blame it on that. But you know what? You're talking about getting some money in a lawsuit or something. that's what you got to do, right? I slipped on the floor, Mr. Grocery Store person.
That's right. So where's my $500,000?
Right. So. Yeah. So you do what you do. It's like the guy who gets hurt on Saturday but comes into work Monday and says, "Oh, I got hurt at the job." It's the same thing. It's the same thing. But Major League Baseball is so far behind. It just hurts to see that nothing they do, with the exception of steroids, is helping their ratings. And so they get something good going and then they stop it.
At all. It's just like this thing when they came up with put the guy on second base to start.
I like that.
Okay. I don't know if you saw, because the Angels and the Giants just got done playing, right? And they went to the 13th inning. So they put the guy out at second, and then the home team comes up and you put the guy out at second. Nothing happened. The next inning, he put a guy at second. He came around and scored. Well, guess what happened? The Angels came around and scored. So how is it any different than starting the inning in the natural way? If they're trying to come up with all these wacky ideas, and I don't see any of it working. None of it.
I like the second base deal, and I think I haven't looked at the numbers, but I think it's sped up extra inning games. They end faster than they did before. You're not going to see a whole lot of 15, 16, 17 inning games, but it seems like they're like about 15 years behind on changes, and so they're trying to play catch up, but it's just not working for them. They got to figure out. They need someone creative, not Manfred. They need to get rid of him.
Yeah.
Find someone else that could go. Because look at the NBA. Adam Silver's come in and he's changed a lot of things for the better. There's not everything, but he's done well there as the commissioner. And even Roger Goodell, as much as people like to hate him, he's been good for the sport in most cases. So Major League Baseball has to find a way to get up to speed on things, get up to the current day on some things, and find ways that they can make improvements to the fan experience, but not really mess with the game a whole lot.
Right. And that's the next thing you know, baseball will be right down there with water polo, as far as, popularity is concerned. So I don't want that. I've been a baseball fan my whole life. So I like baseball and I want it to continue, but it seems like they're battling the fan at every turn.
And I say that, but I've watched more baseball this year than I've watched in a long time. And I went from watching basketball to watching baseball. And I put a lot of time in, and I've watched a game. I probably watch 4 games a week right now, which is way more than I've ever watched.
Well, hopefully that will continue. So, right now, tomorrow is the last day, I believe, for the fan voting for the All-Star game. And I don't know, did you look at the vote totals so far? Is there anything that stands out to you?
So I've got 4, well, technically 5 positions that right now I'm not happy with.
Okay.
I say not happy with. I'll start with the National League first baseman. I think that's close enough. Muncy's in the lead right now. Freeman's number 2. Rizzo, he's 3rd, but he's falling off right now. I had Freeman in over Muncy, but I wouldn't be super upset with that. The AL second baseman's an interesting one too. You've talked about Simeon from day one of the season, fantasy wise. You were in on him. Altuve's had a phenomenal year, and I think if you look at where Altuve was last year to where he is this year, I've got Altuve in also. AL outfield, so many injuries.
I'm there with you.
Yeah, Trout's leading right now, but he's been hurt. Buxton's in there right now. He's hurt again. So Judge, I've got Garcia from Texas. Maybe Teoscar Hernandez as well. I don't know. That one's hard to pick. The one I don't like is the National League outfield. You cannot put 2 Cincinnati Reds in the All-Star game. I don't care how good they've been this season. The team's been bad. And they've got Winker and Castellanos in there. I've got Castellanos in there also, but not Winker. I've got Betts as the 3rd guy over Winker on there. And then the last one I think is interesting is the American League designated hitter spot. Ohtani right now in the lead makes sense. I would put him in there too for the fan reasons, but JD Martinez has had a phenomenal year, and it's hard to look past what JD Martinez has done so far this year. So I think Martinez may have earned it more, but I understand fan-wise why Ohtani's the guy there in the DH spot.
Well, I'm going to go against you a little bit because I think that both Cincinnati outfielders deserve to be there. They've been in the top 3 in hitting in the National League all season, and especially Winker. Who heard of this dude? Really. And I'm talking about in the general fandom.
Right.
There. I'd heard of him, of course. But he's there. Castellanos is there, as you said. So I don't really have a problem with the entire National League, the starters so far. Maybe Ozzie Albies, because he has not been consistent at all. But who behind him are you going to put in there? I'd put Adam Frazier, to be quite honest with you. He's the 3rd guy that's in the top 3 in the National League. The Pirates are a disaster, but he has been a steady player. And how do I know that? Because he's on my fantasy team. So I'm all in for Adam Frazier, but I'm with you on the American League outfield. I just don't understand how you have Byron Buxton. He's been hurt most of the time of the season. He's hurt again. It's not his fault. He's got hit by a pitch, but still, he's been out for the most of the season. I don't. And Minnesota's been a disaster. Who pays attention to Minnesota?
Maybe Minnesotans, whatever they are, but they don't have a football team, so they got to watch baseball, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, and so the only thing that I would say, because Vladimir Guerrero he's the Triple Crown winner right now, don't have a problem with that.
Right.
Matt Olson is like 5th at first base. That's just a tragedy right there. He should be number 2. You can't win against Guerrero. I understand that, but Olson's season has been great. He's been playing the Rangers. I've seen him face to face the past couple of days, and he is just hitting the ball all over the place. And of course, he's on my fantasy team as well. So I'm all in on Olson, and so that's pretty much what I think about that. I would agree with you that Garcia from the Rangers. He has been the American, the rookie that has really shined the spotlight on him. So I'd put him in there. And so we'll see what happens because, like I said, tomorrow is the final day for voting. I actually voted. I don't know if you did or not, Ben.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, and Chris Bryant at 3rd, don't have a problem with that. I'd move Austin Riley up in the voting. He has really come on pretty hard. But that's my thought on the All-Star game. And so I'd like to switch over to the standings that we have right now. And in the AL East, what has happened to the Tampa Bay Rays? They've lost 7 straight, and they're a game and a half out of first.
Losing 7 straight's rough. There's no doubt about that. But I never had confidence in Tampa. They've been playing well. They've been creative with their bullpen and different things like that. They've overachieved to this point. But what do you look at in Tampa? And they're injured right now too, pitching staff. What do you look at right now with Tampa and go, oh yeah, I have 100% confidence in that? I don't. Can they hold on to second, stay above the Yankees? Maybe, but they're not nearly as talented as the Yankees. And I don't know. They're a team to watch here in the second half after the All-Star break. See what happens with them because there's just potential for them to just drop hard here in the second half of the season.
Well, they're going to be something to watch because Wander Franco came out there yesterday and just hit the ball. He hit a 3-run homer. He walked, so he can show power. He can show patience. So he'll be an interesting guy to keep an eye on. And Toronto was 7 games out of first, but they played the fewest home games in the American League. So,
but they're also
Buffalo, maybe that'll turn around a little bit. But I
was going to say they're under 500 at home. Even though they've played fewer games, it's not pretty.
If you can't win at home, you deserve to sit home during the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So over in the Central Division, you got the White Sox leading the Indians. They're 2 games back, and the Indians have had every injury in the book, especially on their pitching staff. They had Savali go down now, so they got Bieber. He's down. So if they can maintain themselves until all these guys get back, they could make a second half push. And I want to give out, we talked about Minnesota, give a shout out to them. They're not in last place anymore. So that's an accomplishment for them this season. They're in 4th place. Over in the AL West, you got Houston. They've won I think it's 9 straight.
9 straight
games, which they had to do because Oakland's won 9 out of their last 10. And the thing that I think you pointed this out once before, Vince, that Oakland, they played the most home-heavy schedule in the league. So we'll have to see how that works out on the road for them. And Let's see.
Houston.
How about the Mariners? They're 8-2.
Yeah. Houston's dangerous.
They are
Very dangerous.
Yeah.
And
they've got like
there's
6 pitchers on their starting staff that could start for anybody.
they've scored more than 60, almost 70 more runs than Oakland, and they have allowed about 30 less runs than Oakland. So their defense and their offense is coming together, and they've struggled. They've had some injury issues as well. But Houston, my goodness, if they can be healthy in the playoffs.
If they get Brakeman's he's been hurt. So
yeah.
So Houston, you got to keep, we talked about that way back in the beginning. Not sure how Houston is going to react because the fans in the stands now and everything else. But they've got it going on. So over in the National League, you've got the Mets leading Atlanta. I'm off Atlanta now. I was thinking that they were going to win the division. They're 4 games back. But they've played 10 more home games than New York. So that doesn't bode well for them going forward.
Who's Atlanta's ace? Like, their starting pitching is not good at all.
No, it hasn't been good. Ian Anderson, I suppose.
Yeah,
and
that's if that's your ace, though.
Yeah,
if he's having a fine season. But
I'm well aware of that because he's also on my fantasy.
With the Mets, and we've talked about it before with the Mets, but they have the least amount of runs scored in the entire league. They're at 246, and I think second to them is Pittsburgh at 254. I think that's correct. That's not good, and that's not going to hold up the rest of the season.
They've been able to do this with nothing from Francisco Lindor, which I'm going to talk about him a little bit. But they're 4 games clear. And like I said, they're the only team in the division that has a winning record.
Yeah. So, isn't that crazy? Man.
Crazy. I thought maybe the NL East was going to be a division to keep an eye on because 3 teams made the playoffs a year ago.
Yeah.
So you can throw that out the window. Maybe one. So the interesting division is over in the Central. You got the Cubs and the Brewers, who are tied for first place going into today's game, even though neither one of them is playing very well. They've won 4 out of their last 10, both of them. And I don't know if you saw this yesterday. You got Javier Baez, who doesn't know how many outs there are in an inning. He's running around the bases and kind of like when you're in T-ball and stuff like that. And I kind of like the manager who pulled him out of the game immediately and said, "Hey, we're not going to have this." So,
he's
to see what's going on there.
The former player at manager now, and he commands that you respect the game. Right. Yep. It's a good situation, I'd say.
And I remember how we talked before the season began about how the Central was the reason, or to keep an eye on it, but not in a good way.
Right.
But they, they've got 2 teams atop. The Reds are 4 back. St. Louis is 4.5 back. The only thing about the Reds is they're only 500 at home. That's not a winning recipe, as we talked about.
Okay, so I talked about the Reds on my podcast last night. Had a guy on from the local ESPN station, and I'm in Lexington, Kentucky, so it's a heavy Reds fan base here, and they're trying to be optimistic about the Reds. And I'm a Brewers fan, so take it for what it is. But their bullpen is horrendous. Their offense, Castellanos, Winker have been great. Everybody else has been horrid, and their starting pitching hasn't been good. Cincinnati, I'm telling you right now, are going to take a nasty fall after the All-Star break. It's going to get ugly for them, and it's going to get ugly very fast. St. Louis is the team that I'm surprised has struggled so bad, and it's because their pitching is falling apart. They had guys who were supposed to be above average pitchers that are not pitching that way right now. That's killing them.
I'm sure you've seen Martinez, who I guess you could argue is their second best pitcher. He
should
be drilled.
Yep.
So that's not looking good. Wainwright, however, he's pitching like the ace that he's been for years and years. And in my league, he's on the waiver wire, which I don't understand. If you're sitting here, go to your league wire and see if he's sitting there. If he is, get him. as he's pitching like the guy that we've come to be known for the last 5-10 years. So then we're going to move to the NL West, where the Dodgers and the Padres have renewed their rivalry over the past couple of days, and the Padres have shown that they're the little brother who has come home to take the big brother down. They've won their last 6 games against the Dodgers, including the first 2 games of the series. And so, if you beat LA, that gives you. I don't know if you saw they're talking about beat LA in the second inning. Come on now, have a little decorum there. But anyway, the answer continues to be the San Francisco Giants, who have turned everything they've done into gold this year. They're 8-2 out of their last 10. They just won today's game, even though it went to the 13th inning. They won. They had Kevin Gausman on the mound, also my guy, and him and Ohtani put one of those pitching clinics to work. They both gave up a single run, so that was really interesting to watch. They want more offense in the game, but contrast that to the game that was earlier in Washington and the Phillies. It was like 13-12, something like that. It's much more interesting to see a 1-1 game in the 8th inning than a 13-12 game to me. So San Francisco, they passed every test. They got the offense, they got the defense, they've got the pitching. What more can you ask out of them?
Yeah, I mean, they're scoring right up there with the Dodgers. The defense is actually better. They're allowing less runs than the Dodgers. They're great at home, 24-10 at home, and they're above average on the road, 24-16. So, again, I just cannot believe that they're going to finish the season in first place in the West. But to this point, they've done everything that's necessary to stay there. They've been playing some great baseball.
So you got to like what's going on there. So we're going to change over and talk about some fantasy baseball right now. And so I want to start off by talking about some drop candidates throughout fantasy baseball. Vince, and do you have any that top your list?
I've got 4. 1 pitcher, 3 batters. You're not going to care about the first one. Tyler Rogers, relief pitcher from San Francisco. There for a while, he was grabbing some saves, but they've kind of gone with the platoon system as the closers, and Rogers has not been part of it here more recently. But so he was good for like a week, and now it's back to not really giving you much at all. A guy that I still have, I've not dropped him yet, and I've had him all season, is Dominic Smith, the New York Mets. He's qualified as outfield and first base. He's had some good stretches with some home runs and stuff like that, but he's been tapering off. I've been trying to package him in on a 2-for-1 trade. Haven't had any success with that. And I'm getting to that point now where I'm thinking I'm going to finally have to let him go. He's just not producing enough. Tyler O'Neill, outfielder for the Cardinals. He was a guy that,
with you.
Yeah, he was a guy that was, he was doing it there for a while. He was worth having on the roster, and then he dropped off. And then my last one is Jazz from Miami, Jazz Chisholm. He too is tapered off. You might be able to trade him as opposed to drop him. Some people, if they're not paying enough attention, will be like, oh, yeah, he's great. But he has not been great as of late. I think it's time to move on from Jazz.
All right. And I just want to piggyback on what you're saying about Tyler O'Neill. He has struck out in 13 straight games.
Yikes.
He's hitting 167 in his last 7, and he has no home runs since June 9th. But yet he's owned in 75.6% of leagues. Yeah. Now, if you're in a points league, that's what I'm in, you cannot have all these negative, stats going on. You just can't. You sit there and you pull him up, -2, right? -3. You can't have that.
Right.
So I'm totally with you. And one of the guys that I wanted to really highlight was Gleyber Torres, and I drafted him. And he's hitting, if you believe this, Vince, he's hitting 0.50, 0.50 in his last 7 games. He has 6 strikeouts in his last 2 games. But yet he's owned in 88% of leagues. And finally, he's in a 1 for 24 slump right now. So I had to kick him, and he only plays shortstop. So that does not give you the because I like guys that play different positions, and so I might be able to live with somebody that struggles a little bit, but he only plays shortstop, so I cut him.
So I drafted Torres, 56th overall, and I traded him away back in April. I packaged him and Manny Machado and got back Pete Alonso and Carlos Correa. Correa's been great. Alonso's not. We'll talk about him in a minute, but I think it was a good trade overall. He's been traded now 3 times in the same league. After I traded him, someone else traded him for Javi Baez and Adolis Garcia, along with Lewis Roberts and Tyler Rogers. That was a steal of a trade by the one team.
Yeah,
and then
Garcia would be worth him all by himself.
Then he got traded again, packaged with Hosmer for Bryce Harper and Casey Mize. So he's been moving around our league, my deep league. He's been moving around a little bit. I'm glad I got rid of him when I did, and I think I came out on top. I hated losing Machado, but Correa was worth it, and Alonso, I'm hoping after the All-Star break will be worth it also.
He'll get started, yeah. So I'm with you on that one. And so who do you have, if anyone, that you want to highlight as a sell high candidate?
Sell high. So we were just talking about Pete Alonso. On the name factor, he's a guy that stat-wise is not doing it for you this year. You might be able to move him for another high-price piece that's worth having on your roster. I have tried to trade him in my league and haven't had any success with it yet. But I'm shooting really high. I'm out for some big names. And haven't had a lot of success. I got 2 other guys I'm selling high right now. Ke'Bryan Hayes in Pittsburgh, third baseman. He started off the season well, got injured. He's been okay. He's not bad. He's been fine. But again, if you got someone in your league that's not paying a ton of attention to what's going on in actual baseball, they might have heard the name and the excitement of him coming into the season and think, oh, I can get him. Might be able to get him, sell high on him. And then my last one's Aaron Judge. And I have Aaron Judge on my team, and I've been offered all kinds of stuff for him, and I haven't let go of him yet. But I feel like they've been offering low. He's having a great season. He's back to where he needs to be for the most part. And he's a guy that, again, just off a name, an opportunity to move. Maybe you can get 2 really solid pieces for him and be worth it. At this point, I've been holding on to him because I haven't liked what I've gotten as far as offers go. But I think he's a guy you might be able to sell high on, especially if you got a Yankee fan in your league. You got to play on the heartstrings, man, and
right,
get something big.
Especially if he wins this outfield vote for the All-Star game. His name is going to go through the roof. So, that's a pretty smart play, holding on to him. And so here's who I have as a sell high. And this guy is about as hot as anybody in the league, and that's Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed, he had 5 home runs in 2 days.
Yeah.
All right. So he has, let's see, he's have hits in 8 out of his last 9. He has 4 games with 2 or more hits, and this is not a guy that you've known that he comes up and gets 2 hits in a game. He can hit the ball to the moon, but he hasn't been doing it up until this last little run, and he's the streaky. He could turn around and hit 150 over his next 5 games. So if you have him, see what you might. Somebody's like, man, I need his power. And see what you might be able to get in return for him. And I'm going to say the same thing about C.J. Cron of the Colorado Rockies. He is on a 7-game hit streak, but 6 of those were at home. And we all know when the Rockies hit the road, they leave their bat back in Colorado. But he's
I was just offered
in his last 7 games, 450.
6:30 tonight, I was offered C.J. Cron and Keston Hiura for Pete Alonso.
Yeah, you might want to.
I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna pass on that. I'll pick up Keston Hiura if I want him later. He'll be available.
Yeah, you may not want to. Selling high doesn't mean that you're going to get Alonso. No,
right.
But Who knows?
Who knows?
Maybe you got somebody out there that's just not paying attention.
Yeah, never
So
hurts to
I would
ask.
try and get him sold if at all possible. And the third guy is Alex Verdugo of Boston. He's on a 7-game hitting streak, but he's only hit 1 home run during that 7 game. But he has a name. He has Boston. So maybe you can get somebody to say, "Oh yeah, I want him," and see what you can get.
If you're gonna trade Verdugo, you better get value back
That's what I'm saying. That's
because
why they're sell high. If you're not going to get an
yeah,
offer that's worth it, then you just keep him on your team. But that's the
yeah.
whole idea behind a sell high.
He's got 44 runs on the season, 32 RBIs, 4 stolen bases. He's batting 289. I've got him on one of my leagues. Absolutely love him. I drafted him, and I drafted him at 113 overall. And if anybody wants him in my league, they're going to have to pay a heavy price for him because I love him on my team.
Yeah. And when we talk about the sell highs, that doesn't mean that you just throw them out.
Right.
See what you can get. And if you don't get what you want, then you just put them right back on your roster and you're good to go. But then there's some guys that are buy lows. Somebody that maybe somebody else has that you can look at and say, well, maybe I might be able to snow somebody a little bit and get somebody to bite off a guy. So do you have any buy low candidates?
I got 3 of them.
Me too.
Dansby Swanson,
Okay.
shortstop with Atlanta. If you've been in fantasy baseball for a while, you've probably been burned by Dansby Swanson in the past.
Bad. Like
Yeah. But he's doing pretty solid this year. And if you need some shortstop help, he's a guy you can probably get without having to give up much for him. Might be able to find him on some waiver wires and shallower leagues. He's a guy
on the
I like.
waiver wire in my league, so I already know that.
Yeah, yeah. He's on one of my leagues. He's on the waiver wire. The other 2, well, he might be on my waiver wire in 2 leagues actually, but he's worth looking at. The other guy is really struggling right now is Yerman Mercedes. I think he's going to come back.
In my league, he's right at the top of the waiver wire because I saw that he was like 0 for 24 or something crazy like that.
Ever since Tony La Russa publicly scolded him for hitting the 3-0 pitch out of the park when they were up by 10 or whatever, he's been horrible. But I'm telling you, get him. You can get him right now super cheap. You can get him for free, or you can trade some nobody for him probably right now. It's going to be worth your investment. Mark my words. It might not be immediate. It's going to be worth it to have him on your team. And then the last one I have is Trent Grisham. He's still owned by 99 or 98%, but he's gone kind of through a slump right now. But he's a guy, he's a veteran. He's been around for a while. He'll come back out of it. He's not going to be spectacular, but he's going to be able to provide you some good stats and get you some points. And right now is the time to go after him because of his slump. You might be able to steal him at this point in time.
That sounds great. And some of the buy lows I'm a little hesitant on, but that's why they're buy lows.
Right.
And the first guy I'm going to talk about is from the Reds, is Luis Castillo, who has been an absolute disaster.
Yeah, you can have him
through the season. But this is why I'm saying maybe he's a buy low.
Yeah.
His last few, he gave up 2 runs on 9 hits. He has 14 strikeouts in his last 13 innings. But whoever owns him might be looking at and say he has a 2-10 record with the 5.61 ERA. So if you can get him and give your third string center fielder or something like that, see what you can do. I wouldn't offer a whole lot for him, but we've been waiting for him to turn it around, and maybe he has now. So that's why I'm going to buy low. I wouldn't offer a whole lot, but if somebody was to come to me and say, hey, we'll see what happens. And the second pitcher who has been almost as awful, and that's Patrick Corbin.
Yeah.
Of Washington, because he has a 5.40 ERA, but he's won his last 2 starts. And he gave up 3 runs and had 14 Ks and 14 in the 3rd inning with just 2 walks. So that is a flip that we like to see. And somebody's looking at his 5.40 ERA, you might be able to get him for somebody, your backup, relief pitcher or something. So I would look
Yeah,
at that.
whoever has Corbin right now picked him up on the waiver wire in the last probably 2 or 3 weeks, and
So.
they'll think if you offer a trade for him, they'll probably think, "I just picked this guy up. Yeah, you can have him." and you're right. Good potential on Corbin and Castillo too. I'm so scared of the Reds. I don't want to touch any of them right now. Castellanos is the only one I have confidence in. I think Winker's going to be bad in the second half of the season. I think the whole team's going to be bad, but I just don't trust him. So yeah, if I had Castillo, you could have him. I'd trade him for Beans at this point.
That's why he's a buy low candidate.
Yeah, yep.
And if somebody was to offer me him for Beans, I'd probably do it.
It's like he's the kind of guy.
I'll send him to the wire.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy that if you have him, you feel like you can't cut him because there's always the chance he can come around. But if someone offers to trade you something for him, okay, yeah, that I can do. I can part with them. I just can't cut them. I got guys on my team right now I just can't cut, but I don't want them on my team.
and this last guy that I have who has been just terrible all season, and it's Francisco Lindor. And let's see, he has 3 hits and 2 home runs. He had that a while back, but now he's 0 for his last 9, so he has gone straight back downhill. Mm-hmm. And so whoever owns him might be saying, I've had enough of this. So maybe you can pry him loose by offering him, like you said, beans. Mm-hmm. Maybe cook the beans for him before you trade him or whatever. But
yeah,
he's a guy that I would look to see if maybe somebody might be willing to trade him.
I moved him. It was probably about 2-3 weeks ago now. But I held on to him for a while.
Well, 2 or 3 weeks ago is when he had those, 2 home run games or whatever it was. And if you're going to move him, that would be the time to do it.
I got him. I shipped him out, but at the same time, he's that same kind of guy. You're not going to cut him, so
you can't cut him.
Yeah, so whoever has him, they're probably willing to trade him. You might have to give up something that you like for him, but not like your best players. Obviously, his numbers don't allow that. So, yeah, you're right. That's a good one. I like that one.
You got 26 guys on your roster. There has to be somebody that would, you could trade to get Francisco Lindor.
Yeah.
All right, so let's turn our attention to waivers. Is there anybody on waivers that you think might be worth adding?
I think the obvious one right now is Adam Duvall in Miami. He's got.
Oh, my goodness. If Kyle Schwarber isn't the hottest hitter, it's got to be Duvall.
It's Duvall. Yeah, you're right. He's only owned by 42% of leagues right now. 4 home runs.
4 to 42 in like days.
Yeah. Yep. 4 home runs, 10 RBIs, a stolen base, batting .313 in the last week. So he's one that everybody's kind of on at this point. So I'll give you 2 that are a lot lesser being picked up right now. Tony Kemp, Oakland.
I got him. I just picked him up. So
he's got dual eligibility, second base outfield.
He's good.
14.8% owned, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, a stolen base. He's batting .333 in the last week as well. And then the other one, I would be surprised if you've picked them up, but I did. Shed Long, Seattle second baseman.
I've heard the name, but I have not picked him up.
He's currently owned by 1.7%. But in the last week, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, batting .300. He's getting playing time. And that's big. When you're going to pick up these guys that are owned by like 1, 2, 3% of people, you have to make sure they're getting playing time. When Kelenic came up in Seattle, my people in my league were going nuts over it. I'm like, but he's not going to play. Like, he's going to get some playing time. But their outfield was so stacked at that point, he wasn't going to get regular playing time. So I stayed away from him. Right now, Shed Long is getting playing time, and he's producing. So as long as that continues, he's welcome on my roster. I'm going to watch carefully to see what he's doing. Make sure, he's on my bench at the moment, and I'll move him up for guys that are injured or sitting out a game or something like that. I'm not playing him every day. But he's a guy I'm watching and as potential because he's been pretty solid here the last couple of weeks. So He's a guy to watch for. And then last one I have, again, you won't care about. He's a relief pitcher. But Lou Trevino from Oakland, he's only owned by 60% of the leagues. He's had in the last couple of weeks 4 saves, but he's got a 0 ERA. So he's not going to hurt you. He's not going to be a relief pitcher that hurts you. But again, does he get enough opportunities for saves? That's the thing you have to balance with the relief pitchers. So he's not for everybody, but if you're desperate for some saves, he's the guy to watch for.
Well, I've got a couple of guys. One guy that you need to take a look at is Chris Sale of the Red Sox.
Yeah.
And because he's getting ready to come back in July. So if he's on your waiver wire and you've got a lot of teams have any place to put, somebody on their injured list. But if you do and he's on your wire, pick him up.
Yeah.
So he's the first guy. And there's a couple of guys from the Mariners. J.P. Crawford, their shortstop, has just been hitting the ball all over the place. He has a 9-game hitting streak, but he's only owned in 28% of leagues. So
he's a guy that's, if you've been in fantasy baseball for a while, you've probably been burned by him also. Because when he was in Philadelphia, he was the hot name as breakout candidate of the year, 2 years ago, I think. And then he did nothing in Philadelphia. But you're right; he's on a hot streak right now. That's a great name to watch. I like that one.
He especially because he's hitting like almost 280, and that's on a Seattle team who if you remember, had a batting average of 199 not too long ago. So if you got a guy on the Mariners who's hitting 280, you might want to pay attention to that. And the other player that's also on the Mariners is Chris Flexen.
Yes,
he came out yesterday and he pitched against the Rockies, and of course, as I said, the Rockies have tissue paper at the plate, and he pitched very well. He's his last 14 and 2/3 innings, he has 1 earned run and 14 strikeouts.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's on your wire, get him.
I snagged him, and it was a great pickup.
I did not, because I don't have any problems with my starting pitching. So I did not. But if you have a starter, you need a starter, he's the guy I would look at.
Definitely.
All right. So the last thing I want to talk about is our
1 second, Kev. You mentioned Chris Sale. The other guy is Eloy Jimenez, which with the White Sox.
From the White
Sox,
only
owned
because it looked like he was going to be out for longer.
He's going to be back.
Now they're talking about August.
Yeah, and he's only owned by like 37% of teams, something like that. If you've got a spot on the IL, especially if you're in a keeper league, depending on how deep your keepers are and stuff like that, but he's worth bringing in because you're talking about end of the season, playoff time for fantasy baseball. That might be a great one to have.
Yeah, like I said, most people don't have any IL spots open with 7,450, players injured or whatever. So
yep.
But the last thing I wanted to talk about was actually our fantasy rosters. I'm just going to touch on this a little bit because it's interesting in my league. I'm 10-2, and I'm going up against a guy that's in my division who's also 10-2. So we're battling it out for first place right now. I beat him earlier in the season, so we're going head to head. And if I can beat him, then I beat him twice head to head, and put him a game behind me. It almost be like a 2-game league. So that's interesting. That's the highlight of our league is 2 guys that are 10-2 going head to head. So,
man, I'm struggling. 3 leagues, all 3 of them I'm hurting in. Last year I won my keeper league. This year I think I'm close to last in almost every league I'm in right now, and I'm just battling, and it's not working. This week, I'm going against one of the top teams in our deep league. He's 9-2. I am 3-8. I'm currently on top.
9-2. That's what I am. Not 10. I'm impending victory. 9-2.
Right now, I'm beating them, but this is halfway through the week. 2 weeks ago, I was doing a Sunday podcast with my dad, and we were playing each other. And we started the podcast, and Dad said, well, fantasy baseball is not going good for me this week because I was blowing him out. And I pulled it up to look, and he was beating me. I was up by like a ton, and all of a sudden he was beating me. And I was like, well, Dad, actually, you're doing all right. Yeah, every league I'm in, I'm just really struggling, and I've been working harder at paying attention, not just to who's available, but what my team's doing, making sure, because I lose track of a guy that I like, and then I realize, oh man, he's been batting 111. It's like, maybe it's time to move on from him. So I'm trying to do a better job of that. And but I take these long shots, the Shed Longs and the Tony Kemps. I'm willing to put one of these guys in. I'm starting to get healthy in these leagues. Bellinger comes back tonight. So I didn't get him activated because I don't know who I'm going to cut yet when I bring him up, hoping somebody gets hurt tonight and I don't have to lose anybody.
But the same thing, because I got Tucker on my injured list, and he got activated today, and I had to figure out who I'm going to drop for him.
Yeah, and I got Duffy as well, and I did not activate Duffy because they said he's not going to be pitching long for a little while, so I'm going to keep him down. I just won't be able to do too much movement with him on the IL, but I don't want to lose him because he was so good before he got hurt.
And so there you have it. So, Vince, where can we find you out there on Twitter? I know there's a lot of places, so...
Yeah. Twitter at Sports Stove right there at the bottom of the screen, right there. That's the best place to follow me. I am on Instagram, the Sports Stove Pod, but I'm most active on Twitter. Then we've got the podcast that comes out Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Sunday night at 4, we're live on YouTube. Tuesday and Thursday, we're live at 8 p.m. on YouTube. Sometimes we throw it live on Twitter as well. But it's always available in podcast form anywhere you get your podcast, the Sports Stove Podcast. Tomorrow night, we'll be live. Dad will be with me, and then we've got a super smart professional fantasy baseball guy going to come join us early in the program. Kevin will be on with us tomorrow night. So we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, hopefully I can bring something to the table on that one. So you can find me, of course, on Twitter. You see my address right there, Kevin62 WILCA, and I'm on Facebook and I'm on YouTube as well. So check me out. I have an article that comes out on the Belly Up site every week, and so just look, and I'll be happy. Like I was saying last week, I'm happy to get into a discussion about fantasy baseball. Who do I think you should add? Who should you drop? As long as you're not saying, well, no, your ideas are just stupid, then I'm not going to get involved in that. But other than that, there's some people that really ask some questions, so I'm more than happy to do that. So just check me out, and I'll be happy to help you out. So that's all I have. You have anything else to add, Vince?
Nothing else.
Okay, that's it. And we sure appreciate you joining us, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
On the flippity flip.
Flippity flip.